No, I'm.
All right, that's it.
You
You crazy? I
I'm
pressed
being
record.
genuine. It's just
I
sometimes
pressed
doesn't come out
record.
that
You
way.
said it.
Here are the 3 questions. You wrote about these in your mind map, 1 and 2. How is the Republic of Gilead an example of a patriarchal society? In what ways is this society oppressive? How does its patriarchal system act to suppress, repress individuals in all aspects of life? And this last question relates primarily to chapter 7, but can be discussed elsewhere. What do you think is the narrator's purpose for telling this story, and who do you think is her audience? And that's in that last part of chapter 7, where she's having that series of flashbacks. So we don't necessarily have to go in order with the questions or the chapters, but we might end up doing that. Let's talk about questions 1 and 2 first, because you did do an extensive amount of writing in your Say Means Better related to these 2 questions. Who would like to start us off? How is the Republic of Gilead an example of a patriarchal society that's oppressive? Ashley, you want to read that? Point us to a moment in the text.
Out of all 3 chapters, I thought that chapter 5 was like the most interesting.
Yeah. It was
One thing that caught me, there was a few ones, but it was like, I think it was on page 24.
Yeah.
I think it was on
Page 24, talk to me.
I'm sorry, it was 26. It was the top.
But
It was like,
oh, with the pregnant woman?
yeah, when she came in, I put, in our society today, women envy and tend to start getting insecure that aren't happy with who they want to be and how they look. Women shouldn't feel like they have to look better than others. You should make others feel more good about themselves. Yeah. That's what I said.
Can you say that again? No?
Someone sitting near her. Rephrase, Kevin.
In our society today,
She said in our society today, women who envy tend to start getting insecure and aren't happy with who they are and what they look like. Women shouldn't feel like they have to look better than others. You should make others feel good about themselves. Basically, is having confidence in yourself and being able to do the same for others.
Which is an interesting connection. So you read on the top of page 26, you read about the handmaids feeling jealous, or all the women basically feeling jealous of the pregnant woman, and you had a connection to contemporary society where
they were like that she did it on purpose, and then somebody was like show off and things. So, and she had a little smirk on her face while she was walking. So I felt like that was just to do on purpose.
To add on to what Ashley was saying, basically, you shouldn't be putting in the down or whatever, you should be in each other. It kind of goes back to the first place, is how is the Republic of Gilead a patriarchal society. So basically, I feel like Gilead, like, purpose entirely is just to make men the dominant ones over women. And basically, they brainwash women to make them feel like their only purpose in Gilead is to conceive children. And if they don't or can't conceive children, then they're not important at all. Like on page 33 in chapter 6, one of the quotes was, "No woman in her right mind these days will seek to prevent a birth, should be so lucky as to conceive." So, page 33. Somewhere over there. Oh, right here. This is the second one. No woman in her right mind these days. You see it? Oh, yeah.
well, these men.
33. So basically, I said that would mean that no woman would dare to, like, on purpose deny a man a child because they feel like that's their purpose, to provide men with children. And I said basically women are taught to fear men so much that they feel obligated to have sex with them to provide them a child. So like they feel like that's their job. They're obligated to, give this man who's not even their husband or someone they want to have sex with a child.
I got a question. See, so women have married the commander, and none of them have kids, like, none of them can have.
They can't conceive.
They can't, right?
They're not even important either. Like all they do on their free time is
Okay.
like, so take care of gardens.
Alright, so happens if the handmaids have, like, you know how when you go back to chapter 5, when she was pregnant and they were talking about she was showing up. So what happens if they pregnant and they killed them? Because they were talking about how she gonna die after she got the baby.
They was talking about that.
That's right.
We don't really know exactly what happened to them. Basically,
Yeah,
it looks like
they
they just
did.
get rid of them. Cause remember the other girl,
We read about it in like another chapter. And
the
it was
other,
like,
remember the
So
lady who
it
used to
said,
walk
it said,
with Offred, the one who used to walk with her to the market with Offred, and she said that she got assigned. Yeah, she disappeared. She got
I
assigned to
got
the
a
north.
clue.
So we don't really.
It says not that she carried the baby a lot. Not that she carried a life, she's close to death. So I don't know what that means.
What page is
Because
that?
everybody's envy of her. So like people, like how Ashley was saying, everyone is envying her that she has a child.
I know, but I think she's so low.
Maybe in that society
Kinda do what I said.
so also
We are talking about ending.
There's a lot of ways to interpret that quote, potentially.
How everybody was envying the lady who was pregnant. So they was like, oh, now that she's carrying a new life, she's closer to death. Cause like everyone is really like they're against her now because she's like the one with like the child and stuff.
so
Maybe in
I think it's the fact that
After she gives birth, the commander doesn't want.
Probably gonna kill her.
or maybe in that society
Well, that's how
it's
it is.
deadly.
Well, we gotta figure out. We gotta read the book.
I think it's the fact that if she has a kid and no other woman can have a kid, they're gonna feel jealous, and after she has that baby, they're gonna try to kill her so she can't have any
I
more.
said that.
Or before.
Oh yeah, true. Try to kill
Or
her and the baby.
during they have the.
Or while she's having a baby, kill her, then let the baby just pop right out.
That's why
Just
they
kill
were
her
saying
because
it was
she's
so
pregnant.
dangerous that she came outside and that they might have a guardian just watching her.
She needs
There was a
special. She
guardian
needs special
outside.
security.
I wanted to say that, but like being pregnant like kind of breaks down a patriotic society because a patriotic society is men having like full control over like women, but like during pregnancy, like they have on page 26, it starts off with after show off. It says a woman that is pregnant doesn't have to go out, doesn't have to go shopping. The daily walk is no longer prescribed to keep her abdominal muscles in working order. So like I feel like that's like their moment of freedom when they're pregnant. So like the male can't really like.
Yeah. Or maybe that's why they don't stay angry.
That's why some of them want to get pregnant because they have to do nothing.
Yeah, so and like not maybe like a big way, but in some small ways, like breaking down the patriotic society.
Yeah.
I went to in chapter 5, page 28. You said page 20? 28. The bottom, the quote is, modesty is invisibility, said Aunt Lydia. Never forget it. To be seen is to be penetrated, which who must be girls is impenetrable. She called us girls. And I think like this makes the woman fearful because men like they dominated society, so I mean that like they could be either one of two things, like they're talking about feelings or like sexual intercourse, which I find is kind of weird because all the women have left is their body. They don't have any control over what they do. So this was a very open-ended quote in chapter 5, which I thought was kind of weird.
Did anyone else mark that in the bottom of 29?
Yeah, underlined.
What were your thoughts? Anyone who was-
I said like girls, like as young, like young. So I feel like like Aunt Lydia like has higher power than them.
Hold on to it. Does anyone else have any remarks on bottom of 28?
But this also makes me wonder, like, what does she usually call them? If she seems surprised that they call her, what if she called them girls?
Wait.
She said she called us girls, like she was in shock, like that she called them girls. So I wanted to know, like, what does she usually call them if not girls?
Calls them out of their names. I mean, that word was around that.
A name to call them.
Or maybe she never like.
Oh, that
yeah,
girl.
they never really grew up in a group.
changed from the time before anyway, so that's interesting. Maybe there was a period of time when they had no name.
But like, I feel that's unfair. Just like women to just be able to be known for their bodies is like, it's crazy.
So there was cap to put in the society, right?
Maybe.
I feel like she was free before. Like
Yeah, that's what she did. Well, what evidence do we have that there are other, societies elsewhere?
Because the way she, okay, so if you go to page 24,
Aren't they fighting a war?
I'm talking,
Some of the war?
I'm talking. Page 24, she feels like, I remember the rules where it never started out, but that every woman knew don't open the door for a stranger, even if he's saying he's a police, make him slide his ID. So I feel like she knew like what was going on back then, like outside of the VA or whatever. So I feel like she was free. She was free before. I know she was free.
But how did she get in here? That's the
I
question.
know she was free.
How did she get in? How did she get into this place? You don't know that.
I know
Did
she
she
got
run away?
no, she got captured.
How do you know?
Did she run away? I mean,
By the
that's an
commander.
interesting question.
How do you know?
Maybe she didn't have freedom when she was with her husband, so she tried to
Right?
come to her.
It was more, I mean, the thing
So yeah,
Page 24, hold up. Take a look at 24. Fatima just said, did she run away from something? Like, why would someone try to run to this place? On the bottom of 24, now we walk along the same street in red pairs, and no man shouts obscenities at us, speaks to us, touches us. No one whistles. There is more than one kind of freedom, said Aunt Lydia. Freedom to and freedom from. In the days of anarchy, it was freedom to. Now you are being given freedom from. Don't underrate it.
I understand.
So you get some evidence of how this like was a utopian vision, like potentially gone wrong, or some people might still think it's a utopian. Like, what do you think about that, Samantha?
When I read it and I was thinking about it, I thought that instead of having one or the other, we should have both. Because both of them together can be a good thing, but if you have too much of one and too little of the other, it could be a very bad thing. So that's just what I thought.
That's it. I think, I say she sounds like she's been there for a little while. She sounds like she knows what's going on. Like when she talks about the guard, she knows like the new guard, like what the new guard, you know,
She can tell the difference between the old guards and the new
she
guards.
said that the guard shot them from there. So like she sounds like she know like who's the new guard and who's like the old guard. She knows like what to do. I don't think she knows everything, because sometimes she goes to police, like get help.
On page 37, I said, as long as I lie, still the difference between lie and lay. Lay is always passive. Even men used to say, I like to get laid. I put that this means that the commander is having sex with her, but we don't know for sure. And then I said this matters because men usually look at women for pleasure, objects of pleasure for sexual reasons.
37.
I have a different tip, like at the bottom of 37.
Go for it.
So it says, if you do make it, you wouldn't have this problem from yeah.
Moral?
Mara, alright. In a half an hour, I said I had a paper due the next day. What was it? So she's like educated, so different from the other, I guess from the other women around her.
And she thinks carefully about the difference in words, so we do get that evidence of education. I mean, and think about how she's looking at language, and she's kind of, and to go back to what, we're gonna go back to the education in a second, because we'll pull to a different area, but before we leave this page, what is the significance, if we think about these questions, when we think of the words and what she's saying about them? How do these words and the way that she's thinking about them connect to the patriarchal society or potentially like a breakdown of it.
What specific words are you talking about?
37. The difference between lie and lay. Lay is always passive. Even men used to say, I like to get laid. Like the action is happening to them. In passive voice, the actioning is happening to you and you have no control over it. So you're giving the power to someone else in passive voice or passive sentences or passive words. Though sometimes they say, I'd like to lay her. Notice how you have the control in that sentence. I lay her. You're taking the control versus having it done to you. That's interesting. How does that relate to this?
You
Like,
just said it.
shows-
You just said
It
it.
shows that the men have more power.
You kind of give
Well, which way do you typically hear it?
I hear it like I like to get laid. How?
I hear it like I like to get laid, but like I kind of automatically think of it as the boy having power, like the guy having the power, like lay. I think of it that way, but even if it comes out their mouth as laid, I think of it as lay.
So the connotation changes even if what it actually means by rules of grammar is different.
I think that is because of now what the stereotypes of men having the power that it kind of is kind of my head now that like men would be like the ability to control the situation.
Not all the time, sometimes it could be the other way around. Where a woman can take control.
And if we think about this society though, is anyone having sex for pleasure? Do we have any evidence of that?
Sex of pleasure?
For sex for pleasure or for love? Is sex happening for pleasure or for love? Do we have
In the
any
book?
evidence of that?
Nope. It's just for kids. It's
It's
just for kids to like get higher up in the government and the society.
But there's evidence like she like wants attention. There's evidence of that.
But
In like chapter 12.
Yeah, from like
once I tell from
the
someone
guard.
she
The guard,
picks,
she was
it's
walking
not
Yeah,
from
she
the
was.
commander.
The guard was looking at her, and then she looked up. So she did like him. So she was like he's cute or whatever. Yeah. So.
Who wanted to finish their motion?
Can I go backwards really quick?
We can go anywhere. We don't have to go anywhere.
Like maybe we talk about the
I will
freedom
go
thing,
back to like chapter 5.
The what?
the freedom thing, the quote about freedom to and freedom from.
24.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Like when I read it, I was thinking what they meant by freedom to, like freedom to do whatever you please, and they would say freedom from. I was thinking like freedom from people who are doing whatever they please. So like how you were saying like a utopia could be others dystopia. So like, for a person who likes to murder other people, right? Their utopia will be freedom to murder whoever they please. But if for a person who don't like getting murdered, their utopia will be freedom from the person who is murdering others. So like freedom to do whatever, but then freedom from the people who are doing whatever they want to. Because sometimes when people do whatever they want to, it can harm others.
I agree. That was great.
To connect with freedom, I'm looking at chapter 7, page 37. It was like in the beginning. It was like the night is mine, my own time. And I put she had her own freedom, like that was hers.
On page 32, well, page 32 and 33, I said, the way they like suppress people not supporting the patriarchal societies, like by killing them.
Tell me more about that. Page 32.
Yeah, 32, like in the middle it says, it's the bags over their heads that are the worst, worse than the face themselves would be. It makes the men like dogs on which the faces have not been painted like scarecrows, which in a way is what they are, since they're meant to scare. So it's basically saying, if you do not support our societies, this will happen to you. And instead at the end their heads are zero, so I'm like, that represents like their value, like since they weren't accepted by society. They're not important anymore and they're dead.
What made them that way? What did they do wrong?
It says, it's more on the bottom, it says, it talks about it more like, for example, like abortion, that if you kill the fetus, like before it was legal, but now it's not illegal, so that's like going against their society.
But these were men who were performing abortions in the time before, and someone like told them like, oh yeah, that guy used to be a doctor, and they were killing these men, like hanging them out on display to just make a point.
It's a big
No, no.
Yeah. So what freedom is being limited, like for women by putting people who perform abortions out on display? Like they're limiting a freedom for women there.
freedom of choice.
I mean,
Do women have control of their own bodies? It's like this control is being taken away.
But the reason why
Kevin, I'm keep cutting him off. Kevin, it's your turn.
well, in this society, our like present day society, where women are allowed to get abortion, and that's a decision that they're able to make. But in the story,
Everywhere?
Not everywhere.
no, not everywhere. There's certain parts that is illegal.
Whole life.
But in this story, that's like seen as a bad thing and something that shouldn't be like, shouldn't be sought after. So they want to implement fear into the women that are pregnant to not get an abortion. So they hang the people outside in order to show women that if they want to get an abortion, that's what's gonna happen to them.
Or like the doctor, that is gonna die, or people are gonna die.
Can I? But if you think about it, there's a decline of birth rate, so they wouldn't allow to get abortions.
Exactly.
But I feel like if there was a higher birth rate or whatever, they would allow them to get abortions. So.
Now,
There's some
present
places, like
society.
and in some places like it's like forced to have an abortion in China, which is like overly
You
popular.
limited it.
Because you have a limit of kids in China, so you only have like a couple of kids.
So like they paid the
One girl, one boy.
I'm not sure, but they paid the population to not have more than 2 kids.
And you have to pay the government if you want additional.
Yeah.
And you have to pay
Mm-hmm.
to have a. Oh.
They have a lot of
So many
people.
children.
So many chinos.
They cook a lot
Can
of
I go
money.
back to
Freedom to, freedom from. This is a good example
Yeah.
of that.
I want to have like 40 kids.
You're a wallet.
I want to build
Can I go back to the freedom part?
Let's, while Sharif plans a way to make enough money for 40 kids, let's go back to Samantha, third point.
Okay, so
Samantha,
on 24 at the top,
24?
it says such freedom now seems almost weightless. Okay, so I was talking to Jasmine about this, cause when I read it, when it said almost weightless, I thought about like weight on your shoulder and how it feels when it comes off and you're like relieved. But when I thought about the society and how it is, Jasmine brought up the point of it's like the freedom that was there and you sort of feel it like a ghost. So it's like almost weightless, like that. So that it was confusing to me, so I underlined it and then I used it as a quote.
It's really interesting. I like this symbolism that like we're interpreting.
That makes a lot of sense.
Interesting.
When we were talking, I also thought of the fact that it's like a feather, because like a feather is like it's so light that you can't like feel it sometimes. So that's what I thought of when I read the quote when we were not doing it.
Her memory is getting lighter and lighter because the further you get away from something, less
It's
you
just
can
a
remember.
memory.
I like that.
And you start to see in chapter 7 how fragmented her memories are. It's written in a way that's really fragmented and choppy. It's almost like a song, or you feel like you're riding a bus and it's like bumpy because the sentences are so short because her memory is interrupted by time that's passed. It's really interesting. So we're building towards that chapter 7 where we see how fragmented her memory is as it's falling apart.
She jumped a moment.
There are 3 like big moments in that chapter. We'll look back at we'll look at these chapters again tomorrow and do some like tableau interpretations, but let's look at chapter 7 before we run out of time in this seminar. We've talked a little bit about the first page. We mentioned her friend Maura, who she meets in college. How can I tell that she met her in college and that they're like at a college campus?
She said she was doing
Paper.
So women are allowed to
She's thinking it's a flashback. So like
So this is before.
yeah, she's having a flashback. Shiloh.
like if it was
was the table of contents. Every other thing is like.
So that's a great question. If you look at the table of contents, let's go there, actually.
Yes, I know.
That just came up. If you look at the table of contents, and you notice titles of chapter or section, night shopping, night waiting room, nap, which is a time when you sleep, or are supposed to sleep, household night, birthday night, soul scroll night, Jezebel's night, salvaging night, historical notes. And what did she say at the beginning of chapter 7 about the night?
Where is the,
About her freedom, that's her freedom.
I said that.
The night is my own.
It's a good time to, so maybe it's like flashback during those times, and she's thinking, because she seems to think at night, so it's probably just flashbacks of like the past.
But to us, it just seemed like she's doing whatever, but she's not really doing it now. It's from what she was doing in the past. To us, it looked like her freedom.
So the practice you mentioned, the practice, all the practice.
We'll have to start
It's
doing
not
it.
back to her freedom.
And now, maybe she's not just doing whatever, maybe she's not just having flashbacks, because look at page 39 at the bottom. Maybe she's doing something like strategic with her time quotes off. I would like to believe this is a story I'm telling. I need to believe it. I must believe it. Those who can believe that such stories are only stories have a better chance. If it's a story I'm telling, then I have control over the ending. Then there will be an ending to the story. And real life will come after it. I can pick up where I left off. It isn't a story I'm telling. It's also a story I'm telling, in my head as I go along. Tell rather than write, because I have nothing to write with, and writing is in any case forbidden. But if it's a story, even in my head, I must be telling it to someone. You don't tell a story only to yourself. There's always someone else. Even when there is no one. A story is like a letter. Dear you, I'll say, just you, without a name. Attaching a name attaches you to the world of fact, which is riskier, more hazardous. Who knows what the chances are out there of survival, yours. I will say you, like an old love song. You can mean more than one. You can mean thousands. I'm not in any immediate danger, I'll say to you. I'll pretend you can hear me. But it's no good, because I know you can't. So, what do you make of all that? What is she doing at night? She's telling a story. Is she writing a story? Is it in a diary?
She's trying to tell her story without.
That is writing
Mhm.
So
They don't have paper and pen too.
She could be right.
How do you know? How do you know?
It said it.
She could be right. She could be
Therefore,
right.
they had no paper and pen. Why would you get?
That don't mean you can't write nothing.
That's how they were able to get the cigarettes. They're not supposed to be doing
You never use a rock and a stick.
She could probably just keep it in her memory. Most
Everybody.
most artists at the end of a book, they'll leave it like they're writing something to someone else, or like writing a letter to someone else or something. So she could just be keeping it in her memory.
Yeah, and you need a call.
I never heard of a handmade buy from the black market.
So if she's not writing it down, how else would there be record of it? Someone had to write it down.
To be honest, I thought.
Did she repeat it over and over and then write it down later?
She could tell it.
Did she tell it to people? Was it passed down like through oral tradition? And this is
That's the
like,
art though.
You don't know, this is a utopian word, so you can make the pen come down too.
Margaret.
is it a utopian world from her point of view?
No.
Do you think she really thinks it's a utopian?
Margaret Atwood wrote that
It's a
part
utopian.
for us,
What does she?
the reader.
What does she want us to think
She was
about?
talking to us.
From the narrator's voice, why does she want us to feel connected to the narrator?